Well, this is a first for this year at least. A moth trapping from home. A small terrace garden in the middle of a small Nottinghamshire town. What could turn up in these favourable conditions? Although rain is forecast in the next few hours. Hopefully just light rain and nothing too detrimental. I must admit that I do like to trap from home. It's very easy to set up. There's no travelling to and from a site. Everything you need is within yards of where I'm sat here in the garden. Usually quite peaceful as well. I do like it when the early evening noise gradually decreases, and then after midnight it goes deathly quiet. Already quite quiet tonight at the moment, but there's time for that to change. But it's also quiet for moths. I have had two species in, large yellow undoing and small fan-footed wave, and I'm expecting a decent species list, despite the fact that we're struggling for moths locally. Like most people who run a trap at home, I sight it up against a wall at the end of the house. I don't bother with the white sheet, find that I don't need it, and by not using the white sheet, that cuts down the amount of light that is emitted from the light itself. It does increase the brightness and the amount of light that's scattered around the garden, and also just as a consideration really to the neighbours. But I'm fortunate where this light's sited, because none of its light goes directly into anybody's bedrooms or even their living rooms, so no one can complain. It's always something worth considering and thinking about if you're going to run a moth trap at home. So I'm very fortunate that way that I can run an MV light, because MV light, as you can see, is quite in your face, so to speak. It's a very bright light. Never look at a MV bulb when it's running. But we'll see what that moth is that's just come in. Looks a little bit interesting. And then we'll see what else comes in during the course of hopefully a couple of hours at least. Weather depending, of course. It's a slow start. Not much flying around though either, and I'll go through the species that I've got written down in a minute or two, but among those species are two of the regular sort of colourful favourites that I like to feature, one being a barred yellow. It's not very often I get barred yellow here. It's just about annual, although it can be a couple of years between visits sometimes. The other colourful favourite is elephant hawk moth, which you featured on the last moth trapping video. Brilliant moth to go out into your little garden and catch. And of course, you can catch it, keep it overnight, and then show the children how colourful moths can be. So nice that elephant hawk moth has dropped in. Of the others, we've had singles of snout, willow beauty, and ribboned wave, and then only a couple of micro moths at the moment. One is the beautiful plume Amblyctilia acanthodactyla. Now there's a name to conjure with. But I think we'll end up with a fairly decent list. Although it'd be nice to see a few more moths. Oh, what a fabulous species this is. This, of course, is swallowtail moth, one of, what, 4 that I've had now. They quite often come and go towards the light. This one is one of a couple now that have settled down, but what a beautiful moth this is. The wings look just like silk. Quite often the coloration is quite thin and the wings, as you can see here, have that sort of transparent feel to them. But a beautiful moth, appropriately named with the swallowtail-like projections to the hind wings. This moth has suffered a little bit of damage here, but what a beautiful thing. Very common. Another moth that you'll catch in a suburban or urban setting. It's amazing when you think or realise what beautiful moths are flying around the vicinity of your house. Mothing isn't all rarities. These beautiful common moths are the staple diet of any moth trap. Well, here's another old favourite of this channel. Always nice when these settle down, and this of course is a peppered moth. Absolutely beautiful with that white background coloration and then the different densities of black peppered markings. It's a beauty of a moth. Fabulous things. Common and will often turn up at your light in suburban settings like this. A cracking moth, another example of the moths that you can catch in an urban garden. Beautiful. Now, unusually, this elephant hawk moth has settled down immediately on arriving at the light. Quite often, when they first come in, they fly around madly, bumping into everything, and then eventually they settle down, quite often after having tried to fly upside down on the sheet or on the pavement as here, but this one has behaved itself. But what a beautiful moth. It's one of the great things about this hobby, that even from a terrace garden such as this, you can come out and catch one of these and more will probably drop in. I know a couple of years ago I had about 7 all drop in within the space of a few minutes after midnight one night. That was quite spectacular, just like the moth. Absolutely beautiful. One of those moths that you can catch overnight and then show the kids the following morning. Well, the first bit of rain, although at the moment it's just drizzle, just a light drizzle, that won't stop proceedings. I have toyed with the idea of building like a canopy over here, because moths will fly in the rain. I've had moths come flying in even when it's been torrential thunderstorm rain. At the moment it's just a pleasant drizzle, if any amount of rain can be pleasant, but a drizzle would be in my book. Certainly won't stop the moths from coming in, and I need to have a look because there's an interesting species or two just knocking on the walls. A few micros coming in now, and the species list is doing all right. We're lacking the numbers of previous years around this time, but it's nice to get some moths. And the good thing about trapping from a garden is, although you don't get the number of rarities or more uncommon species that you tend to go for when you trap away from home, you get a different range of moths. In some instances, there's a number of species that I trap here and I've never had them away from the garden. Now here's another beauty that's settled at a nice height on the wall so that I can get to it, and this of course is a common emerald. Just look at the range of moths that we've had in this first hour. I know they're common, but they're absolutely beautiful moths that anybody can catch if you're on a trap in a suburban garden or even an urban garden. You don't need a large garden to attract lots of moths. Fabulous thing. Common emerald, I do love common emerald are like all green moths, as many of you will remember. And thankfully, this is a common species which lives up to its name, and I'm pleased that it does. It's a beauty. Well, as you can see, the rain's coming down a bit more now, which is annoying because it's a really enjoyable session. There's a buff ermine that's just flying around at the moment. Small magpie on the wall there, and another swallow-tailed moth. It's just a shame that this rain is coming down, and I'm just going to give it a little bit longer just to see if anything really does come of this rain. But they are expecting and forecasting rain over pretty much the rest of the night. It's a shame, but when it does this, it just tends to encourage you more. It gives you that enthusiasm to get out and make the most of when conditions are just perfect, which they were. So now it's a quick check to see if I've missed anything that's come in, and then we'll probably switch the light off. Water and electrics tend not to mix very well, although the light itself is well waterproofed.